There is a Timex on the rack at your nearest drugstore. It costs $35. It is assembled in Cebu, Philippines from components sourced in China and India. The name on the dial is 170 years old. The engineering behind it is not. The headquarters that housed the brand in Middlebury, Connecticut, sold in 2023 for $7.5 million, less than a third of what it cost to build. The museum that told the company's story in Waterbury closed in 2015. No one came. But here is what that name once meant. In the late 1960s, Timex accounts for nearly half of every wristwatch sold through American retail stores. 1 in 3 watches purchased in the United States carries the Timex name. The company employs 30,000 people on 4 continents. A former television newscaster straps Timex watches to boat propellers, drops them over dams, freezes them in blocks of ice, and they keep running. That is America's watch, the most worn timepiece in the Western Hemisphere. And this is the story of how it stops ticking. The 2 men who build this empire are not Americans. They are Norwegians who flee the Nazi invasion of their country in 1940. One of them, an engineer born in Bergen with a prime minister for an uncle, is about to become the Henry Ford of the watch industry. The other, a shipping magnate born in Witsten, is about to buy a dying clock company in Connecticut for $500,000 and rename it with a word he invents from 2 brands he likes. The clock company is nearly 90 years old when they find it. What they do with it changes how 300 million Americans tell time. The Waterbury Clock Company begins in 1854. A brass manufacturer named Benedict and Burnham, based in Waterbury, Connecticut, branches into clocks using brass wheels and gears. The company incorporates on March 27, 1857, with $60,000 in capital. The Naugatuck River Valley is so dense with clockmakers that people call it the Switzerland of America. Waterbury becomes one of them, producing over 20,000 clocks per day by the end of the 19th century. In 1896, Robert H. Ingersoll and his brother Charles introduced the Yankee pocket watch for $1. Waterbury supplies the movements. The dollar watch sells over 40 million units. Timekeeping, for the first time, belongs to working people. Then the 20th century arrives and nearly kills the company twice. After the First World War, Ingersoll enters bankruptcy. Waterbury purchases Ingersoll in 1922 for $1.5 million, absorbs the brand, and stumbles into the Great Depression with no clear path to survival. The rescue comes from a cartoon mouse. In 1933, a promoter named Herman K. Kamen sells Walt Disney on the idea of a Mickey Mouse wristwatch manufactured by the Ingersoll Waterbury Company. The watch debuts at the Chicago World's Fair in June 1933. At a price of $3.25. Macy's sells 11,000 in a single day. Within 2 years, 2.5 million Mickey Mouse watches have sold. The Hartford Courant reports that Waterbury adds 3,000 employees and gives Mickey Mouse most of the credit. The cartoon mouse saves the clock company from bankruptcy. But the clock company still has no future. It is an aging Connecticut manufacturer running on licensed characters and borrowed time. Then 2 Norwegians walk through the door. Thomas Fredrik Olsen is born in 1897 in Witsten, Norway. His family runs Fred. Olsen & Company, a shipping empire dating to 1848. Joachim Leimkuhl is born on September 22, 1895, in Bergen. His father is Christopher Leimkuhl, Norway's former Minister of Labour. His uncle is Christian Michelsen, Norway's first independent Prime Minister. Leimkuhl studies business and engineering at Harvard and MIT. In April 1940, Germany invades Norway. Both men flee to the United States with their families. They are looking for investments that can aid the Allied war effort. In 1941, Thomas Olsen pays $500,000 for a controlling interest in the Waterbury Clock Company. Olsen becomes chairman. Leimkuhl becomes president. A new manufacturing plant rises in Middlebury, Connecticut in 1942. Its primary product is not watches. It is precision fuse timers for bombs. Under Lehmkuhl's direction, the plant becomes the largest producer of fuse timers in the United States. In 1943, the company receives the Army-Navy E Award for excellence in production. In 1944, a shareholder vote renames the company the United States Time Corporation. The war ends in 1945. Thomas Olsen returns to Norway to rebuild the shipping business. Lehmkuhl stays in Connecticut. He has a bomb fuse factory, a workforce trained in precision manufacturing, and an idea. He is going to convert the entire operation to produce the cheapest, toughest wristwatch the American market has ever seen. In 1949, the first Timex watches roll off the line in Middlebury. They cost less than $7. They contain no jewels, and no jeweler in America wants to sell them. Lehmkuhl's insight is structural. Every watchmaker in the world uses jeweled bearings. They are delicate, they are expensive, they require skilled repair. Lehmkuhl replaces them with hard alloy bearings. The watch is cheaper to produce and more rugged in the hand. He eliminates every costly, non-functional finish the traditional industry takes for granted. Diamond-cut bevels on bridges, polished top surfaces on screws, machine-engraved markings. These finishes look impressive, cost money, and add nothing to the accuracy or the durability of the movement. Lehmkuhl strips them all. He mechanizes production to a degree no watchmaker has attempted. The result is a watch that retails between $6.95 and $39.95. It is not a luxury object. It is not a gift you give once and repair for a lifetime. It is an appliance. You buy it where you buy aspirin. The industry calls Lehmkuhl the Henry Ford of the watch industry, and the comparison is precise. He does to the wristwatch what Ford does to the automobile. He removes every barrier between the product and the ordinary buyer. The ordinary buyer, however, cannot buy it from a jeweler. Jewelers mark up watches by 100%. Timex's marketing insists on only a 30% markup. The jewelers refuse. Robert Moore, head of Timex's marketing operation, does not beg them to reconsider. He bypasses them entirely. Drugstores, hardware stores, department stores, tobacco stands. He builds display cases that dunk ticking Timex watches into water and bang them with small hammers right on the counter in front of the customer. By the late 1960s, Moore has built a distribution network that reaches over 150,000 retail outlets across the country. In 1956, Timex hires John Cameron Swayze, a former NBC news anchor, to host television commercials. The concept is simple. Strap a Timex to something violent and see if it survives. Swayze attaches watches to boat propellers and runs them underwater. He freezes them in blocks of ice. He shakes them in automatic paint mixers. He ties them to the hooves of galloping horses. He drops them over the Grand Coulee Dam. He fires them through panes of glass on the tips of arrows. Every time he pulls the watch out, holds it to the camera and delivers the line, it takes a licking and keeps on ticking. For over 20 years, Swayze is the face of the brand. The torture tests are performed live. When Swayze straps a watch to an outboard motor propeller and the watch flies off into the water tank, he does not panic. He ad-libs, it is probably on the bottom of the tank, still ticking. The numbers climb in lockstep with the spectacle. By 1960, Timex captures 25% of the American watch market. By the early 1960s, 1 in 3 watches sold in the United States is a Timex. By 1961, annual sales reach $71 million, with after-tax profits of $2.9 million. The company preaches a radical idea. It is almost as cheap to buy a new Timex as to repair an old one. Buy several. Build a wardrobe of styles, the way you build a wardrobe of shoes. The wristwatch is no longer a lifetime gift. It is an impulse item. And Timex is in every store where impulses happen. The geographic expansion matches the sales curve. Plants open in Little Rock, Arkansas, beginning in 1945, eventually 5 production and distribution centers. Plants open in Dundee, Scotland, one at Milton of Craigie in 1949, and another at Camperdown shortly after. The Dundee operation peaks at 6,000 workers by 1974, making Timex one of the city's largest employers and the single largest employer of women. A plant opens in Besançon, France, another in Pforzheim, West Germany. Starting in 1950, the Little Rock plant assembles Polaroid cameras for the Polaroid Corporation. Between 1952 and 1979, Timex assembles more than 40 million Polaroid cameras across its facilities. In 1962, Timex becomes the world's largest producer of electric watches. In 1969, the company renames itself the Timex Corporation. By 1970, Lemkool's empire records its peak, $27 million in profit on $200 million in sales. The company deliberately underproduces, manufacturing only 85% of the watches it believes it can sell. There is no desperation in this operation. There is discipline. Lemkool builds the toughest watch at the lowest price, proves it on live television, sells it where people already shop, and never lets supply exceed the pull of demand. That is the engine. That is the method. And in 1970, it is working better than any watchmaking operation in the Western Hemisphere. What happens next is the boldest act of the entire empire, the moment that turns a dominant American manufacturer into something closer to legend. By the late 1960s, Timex accounts for approximately 48% of all wristwatches sold through American retail. The figure is so large that it barely reads as real. Nearly half the wrists in the country, $200 million in annual revenue, and $27 million in profit at the peak. The advertising budget is enormous, and every dollar of it goes to the same message. This watch is tough, this watch is cheap, this watch is everywhere. Timex is not a luxury brand. It is not an aspirational brand. It is the plumbing of American timekeeping. It is the watch your father wears to the factory. It is the watch your mother picks up at the pharmacy counter. It is the watch the military uses because it works and costs nothing to replace. The empire is not glamorous. It is relentless. And at its center, Lemkool, now 75, runs it with the same discipline he brought to it 30 years earlier. Manufacture fewer than you can sell. Engineer the toughness in, prove it publicly, repeat. But the seeds are already planted. In December 1969, Seiko releases the Quartz Astron in Japan, the world's first commercial quartz wristwatch. It is accurate to 5 seconds per month. It signals the beginning of what the industry will call the quartz crisis. By 1975, Texas Instruments and Casio are producing plastic digital watches for under $20. Every factory Timex operates on 4 continents is optimized for mechanical watch production. Every lathe, every tool, every skill on every floor is built around a technology that is about to become obsolete. Thomas Olsen suffered a serious stroke in 1955. Fred Olsen, his son, took charge of the family business empire at 26. Thomas dies in 1969. He never sees the crisis. In 1973, Fred Olsen removes Joachim Lemkool from the chairmanship. Lemkool is 78. It is the last time the man who built the empire touches it. The company he built does not have a clear successor. Its 3 presidents are constantly at odds. And the world has just changed the rules of the game. Lemkool spent 30 years winning. The blade begins to dull. The fall does not begin with the bankruptcy filings or the factory closures. It begins with what the new leadership does not do. They do not ask Lemkool's question. They do not ask how to build the toughest watch at the lowest price and prove it. They ask a different question: how do we compete in electronics? The answer is poorly. Timex's electronic watches in the mid-1970s are awkwardly large and 50% more expensive than those offered by Casio and Seiko. The company splits its mechanical and electronic divisions, isolating them from each other. The electronic engineers cannot draw on the mechanical division's decades of experience. Resentment builds between the 2 groups. The restructuring produces mistake after mistake. In 1975, Polaroid ends its contract with Timex. 2,000 workers lose their jobs. The Disney license, which has been producing character watches since 1933, expires. John Cameron Swayze's commercials are phased out. The workforce that once numbered 30,000 shrinks to 6,000. Offices close. Factories close. In 1977, the company increases production but fails to reinstate its advertising budget. The result is unsold inventory and falling brand awareness. In 1979, Timex loses $4.7 million on sales of $600 million. In 1980, Fred Olsen flies in from Norway, fires Chief Executive Robert Weltzian, and takes the chief executive role himself. He spends 2 weeks a month running the shipping business in Norway and 2 weeks in Connecticut. He is a brilliant strategist with immense energy, but he has no experience running day-to-day operations. Managers grow frustrated as he intervenes in their projects. In 1982, Timex ceases production of all mechanical watches. The original engineering discipline, the hard alloy bearings and mechanized production lines that Lamecool built, is officially dead. That same year, the company launches the Timex Sinclair 1000, a joint venture with Britain's Sinclair Research. It is the first home computer to sell for under $100. 500,000 units sell in the first year. But the follow-up models fail. By January 1984, Timex exits the American home computer market. It is a bomb-fuse company that tried to be a watch company that tried to be a computer company. Each pivot carries it further from the thing it actually knew how to build. In 1983, Swatch launches in Switzerland. Fashion watches enter the game. Timex has no fashion credibility. That same year, Timex announces 1,900 redundancies at the Dundee plant. Workers occupy the factory for 6 weeks. Members of Parliament intervene. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher writes to Fred Olsen personally, urging him to reconsider. The occupation ends, but the damage to the company's reputation in Britain is lasting. The principle that built the empire, engineer it tough, prove it publicly, sell it where people shop, is now nowhere in the operational playbook. The company is managing crises, not manufacturing watches. In October 1984, a Timex product manager named Mario Sabatini flies to Kona, Hawaii, with 1,500 digital sport watches and an idea that will buy the brand another decade. But even that rescue cannot save what Lamecool built. Sabatini sells all 1,500 watches at $34.95 to athletes at the Ironman Triathlon in Kona. Every unit moves. In 1986, Timex acquires the rights to the Ironman name and launches the Ironman Triathlon watch, designed by industrial designer John T. Houlihan. It features a large LCD screen, an 8-lap memory, and water resistance to 100 meters. The case is coated in DuPont automotive paint, the color inspired by a car parked outside Timex's office in Cupertino, California. It is the world's first sports watch. Within the first year, it becomes the best-selling watch in the United States. By the early 1990s, it is selling roughly 500,000 units a year at $39.95. President Bill Clinton wears one. Fred Olsen himself conceives the concept. It is the closest anyone comes to Lamecool's principle since Lamecool left. Build a watch tough enough for the hardest conditions an ordinary person will face, price it so anyone can afford it, and let the athletes prove it. In 1992, Timex introduces Indiglo, an electroluminescent backlight that uniformly illuminates the watch dial. The Ironman is among the first to carry it. Between 1992 and 1995, Ironman sales quadruple. In 1993, during the World Trade Center bombing, evacuees used the Indiglo glow to navigate darkened stairwells. It is the kind of moment the old Timex would have built an entire advertising campaign around. But these are rescue operations. They are not a return to the manufacturing philosophy that built the empire. In 1993, a second strike erupts at the Dundee plant. Timex announces layoffs, wage freezes, and benefit reductions. Workers strike. Timex sacks all 343 strikers, hires replacement workers at lower wages. Violence follows. After 47 years, the Dundee factory closes permanently. In 1994, Timex co-develops the DataLink smartwatch with Microsoft. It is ahead of its time and commercially marginal. By 1998, the company reports sales of $850 million, but the product is no longer made where the company lives. The engineering culture that turned hard alloy bearings and mechanized assembly lines into the toughest cheap watch on earth does not exist anymore. It has been replaced by contract manufacturing and brand management. In 2001, Timex closes its last American manufacturing plant in Little Rock, Arkansas. The final 85 workers lose their jobs. The plant had been making cases and parts for 22 million watches a year, shipping them to assembly facilities in the Philippines. 56 years of domestic watchmaking ends. Timex is the last major American watchmaker to produce anything on American soil, and now it does not. The old Waterbury headquarters is converted into the Timexpo Museum. It opens in 2001. It closes in 2015. Not enough people come. The brand continues to change hands and change shape. In 2008, the company restructures as Timex Group USA, a subsidiary of Timex Group BV, registered in the Netherlands. The Olsen family retains control through a web of Norwegian trusts and holding companies. Manufacturing moves to Cebu in the Philippines, to India, to China. In 2017, Timex reissues the Marlin, a hand-wound mechanical watch from the 1960s. The movement inside it is made by Seagull, a Chinese manufacturer. 35 years after abandoning mechanical watchmaking, Timex buys Chinese movements to make retro versions of its own history. In 2020, the Baupost Group, a Boston-based investment firm led by Seth Klarman, acquires majority ownership of Timex Group. After 79 years, the Olsen family lets go. The Norwegian shipping dynasty that bought a dying Connecticut clock company during a world war and turned it into the most worn watch in America no longer controls the brand. In 2023, Timex sells the Middlebury headquarters building for $7.5 million. The building cost $23 million to construct in 2001. It is threatened with demolition. In 2025, the company relocates to Shelton, Connecticut. Today, Timex Group employs roughly 5,000 people. It licenses its name to Versace, Nautica, Salvatore Ferragamo, and others. Its watches are assembled in the Philippines and sold in drugstores and online, much as they always were. The price point is still low. The distribution is still broad. The name is still everywhere. But the thing underneath the name, the engineering discipline that replaced jewels with alloy, that mechanized production beyond what anyone thought possible, that proved toughness on live television and dared every customer in America to break the product, is gone. In 2019, Apple ships 30.7 million watches. The entire Swiss watch industry ships 21.1 million. The phone in every pocket tells the time for free. The market Timex built, affordable watches for ordinary people, barely exists as a category anyone fights over. Lame Cool built his company on one discipline: engineer the toughness in, prove it publicly, and sell it where ordinary people already stand. He did not need jewelers. He did not need luxury. He needed a watch that could survive a boat propeller on live television and cost less than a dinner for two. The men who followed him inherited the shelf space, the slogan, and the brand. They inherited the answer Lame Cool spent 30 years building. They forgot the question. The question was never how do we sell more watches. The question was how do we make this watch so tough and so cheap that the person who buys it never needs anyone's help to own it. When the company stopped asking that question, it stopped being Timex in any way that mattered. The name kept ticking. The thing it named did not. Timex was built on the conviction that a wristwatch belonged in a drugstore, not a jewelry case, and the day the company stopped engineering that conviction into every movement it made, it became nothing more than the name on the dial.